Welcome to Talking Points Insider Reports Chats. This is the one we're going to be chatting with ourselves and other experts about the most recent insider report. That one is
Two reports. We got two reports this time to talk about.
That's correct. We're breaking the reports up into different subjects. So we're going to be chatting about the July insider report, and we're going to be chatting a little bit about the July and a little bit about the August insider AV.
No, David, you got that wrong.
By the time this comes out, that'll be out. So
no, it won't be out. No, we got the July AV report.
July and August. So anyway, obviously my partner Dave Michels is here with me. And Dave, you want to introduce our guest?
Oh, we got a fantastic guest today. As our regular viewers know, we've had guest analyst join us on this Chatz conversation. I've known Mark Smith, I guess, through three different companies now. Mark's an analyst that covers extensively covers contact center, but a lot more. And Mark, your newest company, I believe, is called AI is Stroganoff. Is that correct?
Well, however you like your pasta, Dave. Yeah,
Tell us
AI
a
and
little bit
software.
tell us about your new company.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me. And my focus is really kind of shining in on the whole dynamic of the AI economy, how software is changing, how the operating models, the technologies, the engagement with humans are working, and just felt like I needed to give it one more shot, starting a new company, and really helping enterprises sift through the BS and try and make some stroganoff along the way.
I'm sorry. There's no BS in AI, and so you're not you should set yourself a higher goal. But anyway, we're gonna talk about just a few of the features that we covered in depth in, I guess, three three insider reports in this video. And so why don't we start off? I was really surprised in the July insider report how many times I typed the word Ring Central. Ring Central just kind of was all over that report. They had a very busy July, and we didn't even talk about their quarterly results, which were also pretty impressive. But I want to start this conversation off with Ring Central and Nice. A lot of people, including myself, thought that the Nice Ring Central partnership was doomed a few years ago when Ring launched Ring CX, but the deal got extended after that, and now it's turned into a bilateral. Keeps on getting better. Thoughts on that, Mark?
I thought the same thing. I didn't really at first kind of glance see that maybe this is a strategic relationship, but I think the elements that Nice is still trying to make sure that they have all the check boxes when it comes to, we'll talk about UC in a little bit, and UCAS. But I think that they also realize there's more in the enterprise they have to accomplish, and they need to continue to extend out, understand what it really means to have collaboration, communications across the enterprise. And for Ring, hell, I mean, they get to continue to seat, their customer base, their knowledge, while maintaining their own CX product, right?
It's interesting because I think you were there, Mark, in Africa. Barack got a question around UCAS, and he was very clear. Anyone who spends more than $5 a month on UCAS is a sucker.
Yeah.
And they were at the time selling UCAS for $5 a month as an add-on. Um, and so obviously, I think Nice is going to be selling RingCentral for more than $5 a month. What do you think happened there? One is clearly a CEO change, but any thoughts on that?
I think that the relationship was seen as somewhat beneficial to both sides. I don't think that the new leadership at Nice probably just sees this as a don't rock the ship, make sure there's no reasons why we can't lose, well, why we can't win more deals, let's say, against folks like Genesis or others. I really think it was more of a portfolio play to kind of shore up the next couple of years to figure out, well, should they expand more in that area? And don't leave any cards off the table, let's put it that way.
David, I want to give you an in here too, but the thing is, David, you and I have talked a lot about Ring Central's video capabilities. Nice has never really been strong in video, and do you think you would, as a business, would you consider buying Ring Central as a UCaaS solution from Nice, or would that feel odd to you or other
Yeah, most
enterprises?
of the enterprises that I've dealt with over the last couple of decades are looking to try and minimize vendors. They don't want to add new vendors. They're trying to go from five to four, from four to three. They're trying to make it smaller. So if they're a nice customer already and you want to add Ring Central through them, then that's a good deal. Then that's smart. But I don't see anybody who's a Ring Central customer going in this other direction. So I don't think there's any real loss here, but I don't think there's a great win either.
I think Nice wins dramatically because the UCAS MQ came out, which we're going to talk about as well. But the UCAS MQ came out, and one of the requirements to be in that report said that you had to have, the usual UCAS stuff, but it also said you had to have a contact center, and it said it could either be native or it can be a third-party add-on that you resell. And I think Nice might be the only company on that report that has both because they built out Ring CX as their own story and they have the Nice partnership. So Nice all of a sudden has two contact centers that don't really overlap and Ring excuse me and I said Ring, I said Nice. Ring has two contact centers that don't really overlap, so I think they come out strong. And then Nice has uh, an MQ leader, a UCAS, so now they're a they're a CCAS leader in the MQ, and now they're also offering Nice, which is a UCAS leader. So they've got two powerful punches in their portfolio. So yeah, I'm glad they were able to sort that out. But continuing along
Refresh my
the
memory, David. Wasn't Ring Central reselling Zoom for a while, and then the partnership kind of broke up, kind of
Yeah,
really
so
well?
that's the problem basically, David, with UCAS in general, is you always form partnerships and then the portfolio always expands. It's like clockwork. And so when Ring Central was a nice young company and Zoom was a nice young company, they were very complementary of each other and they built out a nice portfolio and go to market together. Obviously, Zoom expanded into UCAS, Nice expanded into video, and so that partnership did not persist. So it's
But as I
nice in this
recall, there was
case
some
that
animosity around that, wasn't there?
there
It
was
was not a.
indeed a there was yes. Um, and which actually is a nice segue to this other topic with Ring Central because the Ring Central Avaya partnership came to an end. And for those that don't recall, the Ring Central Avaya partnership, where Avaya was going to resell Ring Central, they called it Avaya Cloud Office. That was the first of several deals. That was the blueprint for several deals that came after that. All the other deals are over. They're all gone. But the Avaya one had persisted for numerous reasons, and very abruptly it ended. Any thoughts on that one? Either one of you?
Well, I
I
have to be
mean,
honest with you, and again, you guys follow that space a lot more closely than I do specifically. But I'm at the point in my career right now where anytime I hear Avaya, it's like the boy who cried wolf to me. It's like, okay, what's the latest in the soap opera? New CEO, old CEO, buying, selling, still existence, 15th bankruptcy. I just don't even take it seriously anymore. I don't know if buyers do, but I certainly.
David, don't exaggerate. They haven't had 14, 15 bankruptcies. They've only had two. They've only had two. Let's not stretch that. But no, it was actually really the suddenness was kind of surprising because the letter which we included in the insider report from Avaya basically said it's over today. Boom. I mean, it's done. And these things take time, right? I mean, you got channel agreements. You've got Avaya was a master agent, so that they've got their commission stuff. You had a lot of these customers that were combining their monthly payment with leased phones, and devices. I mean, this is a complicated thing, and I reached out to both companies with questions, and it was clear that they weren't quite prepared to handle the questions when those announcement came. So it seemed to get really abrupt. Um, uh,
Could it have anything to do with the CEO change?
well, that's another one of our topics, and so we may as well go there too. I think it must have had something to do. It was so abrupt. I think that because then that news broke was like a week ago. It was actually I even wrote in the Insider Report. This is August news and going in the July report because we hadn't got the July report out yet. But the so it had just broke, and then like the following week or the following business day or something, they announced the CEO change. So it was right behind it. So it seems like it might have been related, but it's hard to say. Um, Now, the old CEO, Patrick Dennis, seemed to be doing pretty well, and I was so kind of surprised that he's changing roles. But he was doing a strategy that he is basically, cutting the company of R&D, cutting the company of marketing, cutting the company of a lot of long-term stuff, a lot of layoffs. I mean, how often, David, do you see somebody announcing on LinkedIn that they're leaving Avaya after 57 years, or something like that? I mean, there's just been a lot of stuff indicating the company's kind of slowing down, and you can only do that strategy for so long. I suspect what he was doing was I suspect Avaya was very profitable and was paying back their forced shareholders that were one pre Chapter 11 were bondholders and became shareholders. So I suspect that he was pulling out a lot of cash and paying back the shareholders. I don't know that to be true. So uh, so you can only do that strategy for so long. You can only run that strategy for so long, and something's going to happen. So what happened was the new CEO. What the new CEO does, I don't know. Mark, you got any ideas?
Well, I think a couple of things. The abrupt change of the relationship probably had something else under the covers. There must have been something else from a customer relationship, revenue recognition, attribution, something else. What to make it that abrupt is probably not something that happened, overnight. It was probably something under the covers. Whether or not, the new CEO, Jeff Clark, can he bring, um, what's he going to bring to the table with the rest of the leadership team? We know that they've got other folks there that are newer. Obviously, Mary Lou, who's the CRO, she's been there for a couple of years, ex Genesis exec, ex Oracle exec. you know, um, I think your points are exactly right, which is you can only cut yourself so far until you have to have a core strategy. What is the core product and technology strategy? Why do customers stick with you? And obviously, just repackaging things and the whole move with what Nexus and trying to repackage, re-go after some sub markets. Those are all good things to shore up your assets, but in essence, what are you? You can't just be a reseller. You can't just be somebody holding on to 25-year-old relationships. And I think they probably had the model that said over the next couple of years, they're in pretty big hurt when it comes to maintain some of those nice, revenues, streams. Yeah.
Well, it kind of goes back to your new company because in some ways, the premises equipment that is still out there is
Yep.
getting a new lease on life.
Yep.
AI is kind of being added on. You can add on AI from other software providers and use your plumbing and PBX and contact center, for just core basic routing. And uh, there's not a lot of competition in premises anymore. It's still a huge market.
Yep.
Genesis more or less pulled out, and so Avaya and Cisco, and I guess Mitel and a few others are compared to CCAS, where you've got everyone and their brother, everyone and their brother and their sister lately, because we're seeing a lot more coming jumping in. Um, so. Um, so yeah, David, you had an interesting reaction when you saw the qualifications and experience of the new CEO. You immediately assumed what?
I don't remember what you're referring to, but when I looked at it, I thought that as another person to come in and break up the company.
Yeah, yeah. I think
Yeah.
a lot of people saw what Kodak was on there,
Right.
Compaq was on there, and it's like, well, oh, they brought in somebody to just sell it off and shut it down. That's one way to end a strategy that they've been executing. Uh, I've heard other people suggest the opposite, that this guy's here as a player and he's really going to double down and invest. Um, uh,
Well, he's been around the block. Obviously, he's been on a lot of boards. Obviously, started his career at DEC, Compact, HB, CA. But he's been on board of directors pretty much. So he's stepping into a hot seat of expectations. He hasn't been he was a co-CEO at a small company, but if you look back in his career, technically this is his first. Well, besides Kodak, as you pointed out, he left that in 2019. So, there might be expectations to reshape this thing and maybe find a suitor. Can you sell this thing off to somebody, right?
Yeah, and when you see an abrupt CEO change like this, which by the way, I've lived through multiple times in multiple companies, it's oftentimes that the existing and I'm not saying that this is the case with Avaya, but it's oftentimes the existing CEO has great plans to grow the company 5, 10, 15 years down the road, but that those plans are being cut off by the board saying, forget that, we want out, we want our money back. So, I mean, that's something that I've seen as a muscle memory in the past, where and you get an abrupt change, and all of a sudden, all those long-term plans go away, and in the short term, it's like, what are we going to get for our dollars?
long-term plans like a Via Cloud Office.
Like any of them. Like I said, you say it, it's almost like reading a Russian novel when you don't understand the Russian language. It's like if you
Yeah.
skip the word, the rest doesn't matter. So it's
We also had in
Avaya.
that same insider report another product. I think it was the agent desktop that Avaya was just end of lifing, and so definitely
Yeah.
Clean
narrowing
it
down
up.
that portfolio.
Yeah, Dave, I think your point. I mean, I think that if you want to clean this thing up, get rid of all the external relationships, try to tidy this thing up. There could be a lot of other pressures, to find a new home for it. But I guess time will tell. I mean, Patrick Dennis, it still says he's the executive chairman of the board, but you can't find
Yeah.
any residue that on the website.
Well, it's a privately held company, so uh, yeah. Everybody is there at the shareholders' pleasure. So
Well, if we were good, we would go. They got three of these Avaya tours in New York, Boston, Chicago coming up in the next 6 weeks. I have to figure out if we need to go on the ground and figure out what exactly is being communicated to our core customer base, right?
yeah,
I
yeah,
wouldn't be surprised if a few of those dates were postponed.
Interesting. Yeah.
yeah,
The last three of their tour, they've already done four. These are the big cities in the United States. So yeah, guess we could verify that by um
yeah. And if anyone is attending, feel free to reach out to us and let us know what you heard. Um, all right. So Emerald, oh my gosh. David, this was all over. You were all over this one.
Yeah, we started talking about this in the July AV Insider, and we've got a lot more detail in the August AV Insider, which, like I said, is either out now or should be out any day from now. And this is a soap opera, and I don't really want to spend a lot of time on it, but there's a bunch of things happening at the same time. First of all, Emerald was purchased by Apollo Global Management, who also owns Questex, and that's one of North America's biggest business to business event companies now. They're really growing it. They have Emerald comes to them with the CD Expo, which Dave, you and I have been to, which I'm going to in about 3 weeks. They have the Kitchen and Bath Show, KBiz, which is one of the more popular shows. They're bringing KBiz to Canada as well. So it's a growing, popular company. But they decide Cedia is half owner of ISE, which you and I have attended in Barcelona for the last few years. A really big show, half Cedia, half Avixa. So it's half residential and half AV commercial. And they decided a few years ago that they were going to kind of try and do the same thing, even though they were claiming they weren't. And with Cedia, they were combining a commercial aspect. They print a magazine called Commercial Integrator Expo, so it was the Commercial Integrator Show. But it was definitely a turf step. They were stepping on AVIXA's turf.
Well,
So
it's so obvious, David. You said kitchen and bath. I mean, every bath should be filled with cameras. And
well, there are some cam people. I don't want to say ladies or men. There are some cam people that do that, but it's not exactly the business that I think that they were going for. But in any case, what happened is AVIXA just now at Infocom, which we just got back from, they announced their own show, which is called. They're calling it. I want to get the name right. Reside. RESIDE. So it was, well, if the residential folks think they can get into the commercial space, now the commercial folks are going to jump into the residential. These are turf wars, and these are turf wars from people that are literally spitting at each other because that's what they do. So at Cedia Expo, which I said is going to be about 2 or 3 weeks, the first week of September, they've dropped the name Commercial Integrator completely. Now it's just the Cedia Expo. They don't want to. They
yeah,
don't want to have that fight. They don't want to bring a knife to a gunfight. It's going to be interesting to see if Infocom actually goes ahead with the Reside show, or if they're going to pull back as well. As we've talked about on the last call, Infocom's executive director is retiring at the end of this year. I think a lot of the tit for tat comes from him. So maybe new leadership will bring a new calm. But it's definitely a weird thing to watch in an era where you and I have talked quite a bit about how showrooming trade shows are shrinking. They never really fully recovered from the pandemic. Doesn't matter what industry we're talking about or what corner of our industry we're talking about. To have tried to start this competing turf war probably wasn't a really good thing to do, especially at the time where, there's a question mark hanging over Enterprise Connect. In terms of its success and how well it did after it moved to Las Vegas. So it's interesting to watch these guys fighting with each other. It could be all the sharks just eating themselves, and then there won't be any sharks anymore.
it's interesting about the split between business and consumer. Often the products are similar, and you can see the sales motion, but almost always fail. Cisco's had almost everything they've done in the consumer space fail. Um, Zoom started off kind of more of a consumer, but moved into business. There's the number of failures at trying to do both far outnumber the success stories where they actually have pulled it off. Apple's pulled it off pretty well. Actually, Logitech has pulled it off pretty well, but Logitech's not really fair because people like Mark, who's a business professional user, I think you said you were using a Logi camera. He's using, but he buys it like a consumer, right? You go and you buy the product, and so that's one area, and the same thing, I guess, with the iPhone, and so there, but mostly that separation doesn't like to combine.
Well, if you think about the people that are at a CEDIA show or even at the ISE, the residential side of ISE, you're talking about the very, very top end of the market, the upper 15 or 10 or 15% of the market that are going to integrators to do their custom houses, to build their home theaters,
Yeah.
they want the touch panel to control everything. It could be hotels that are putting this in. Aria was one that famously did it, and MGM Suites did it as well. So you got a company like Crestron that makes these control touch panels and all these other interface gear. They make products for integrators to put into commercial use and for integrators to put into residential use. That's the core market. And everybody else is going after this high end. Yes, I'll build your home theater and your stereo and make your curtains close and bring in solar energy and whatever else you want. That's the market they're going for. Not so much I want to sell individual products to the consumers. So you won't see Logi at Cedia, but you will see Crestron. And you will see some of the display manufacturers and a number of the integrators that do.
And you'll see Logi products.
Yes, absolutely. So the question you want to ask yourself is there a use in the US, in the North American area, for a show that combines these two technologies? You've got CES, which is more from just general technology. They don't care who buys it or puts it in. But then from an integrator standpoint, do you need a separate Cedia and a separate Infocom? Or do you want to combine it like they do at ISE in Barcelona? The problem, you and I have been to Barcelona, it's 4 days. And it's enormous. You can't do the whole thing in 4 days. It's impossible. So the resi people go to the resi area and the commercial people go to the commercial area. We'll see if North America can ever handle one of those. I have a feeling they're all going to kind of back into their corners and lick their wounds.
Interesting. All right, we got to wrap this up. We got one more topic we have to cover. The we covered in the Insider Report actually got quite a bit of space. Was the UCAS Magic Quadrant? I love Magic Quadrants. Most people who follow me know I love Magic. I love writing about them. I love reading them. I love everything about them. I never agree with them. Never, ever agree with them. That's a whole different story. But I definitely love them, and I respect them, and I respect the process and the analysts that do them. But you ask three analysts their opinion, you'll get five answers. But anyway, so that's what we're here to talk about. Let's provide some insights. I'm gonna put it right on you, Mark, because I know this is the kind of report that you do. You do versions of a report like this, and what was your take when you saw the UCAS MQ?
Yeah, I used to do quadrants, and in my prior life, and did orchestrate. I don't know. Last year we probably, when my prior role, about 135 software quadrants on an annualized basis, and so I've been in the quadrant business for
You can't have,
about
quadrants are four. You can't have 135. It's always four.
well, the question is, well, four, but how many categories?
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. You are right. We could make that better than carbonara, maybe. But so I think, listen, there are always talking points. We'll use your frame for it because they are talking points of discussion. The question is how the vendors played the game board effectively to best massage, present, manipulate, and try to, squeeze an extra couple of decimal point positions because we know it's a model and it's based on points and it's based on then placement of a dot. So, but I think in the context of history, Gartner's maintaining history of a category that's really not a category, it's more of a set of capabilities. And the question now is how do you carve up communications and collaborations and such. So was there any big ahas out of it? I guess not. I mean, we all knew that Microsoft and Cisco would be up there, Zoom would be close, Ring is moving up, and then there's the others who were just not playing the game as well as they could, right? Being that you got to put in some grease to make sure that you say all the right things and do all the right slides in your presentation. So I don't think there's any big surprises. I mean, there's other controversial quadrants that we saw recently, conversational AI and all those other elements. But on UCAS, I would say it was a kind of a boring, okay, now what? Um,
You, David?
Well, I found it kind of interesting that both Cisco and Zoom, immediately after the Magic Quadrant came out with essentially the same marketing campaign, plus or minus the number of years. And forgive me because I'm not going to remember, but I think Cisco came out and said, congratulations to our team for being, in the leaders quadrant for 9 years in a row. And then Zoom came out and said, congratulations to our team for being in the leaders quadrant 7 years in a row. And there comes a point where, again, if the message is so similar, what's the difference?
Yeah.
So I don't think it's being used as effectively as it could be, and I don't think it matters that much anymore. If the ultimate result of the Magic Quadrant is yes, you pass, you're blessed, go on, move to the next category, then it's basically a nod, and it becomes a question as to, and again, I know it's not the subject of what we're talking about over here, but how long will it be before an AI replaces a Gartner? Um, because all it is saying, yeah, you checked all these boxes, you're blessed, you're in the leaders quadrant, and that's how the participants are playing it. So I know it's great to talk about and speculate on what the criteria was and all the rest of it. And Dave, I'd love to hear your thoughts about how they switched around the criteria this year and why it's good and why it's not so good. But ultimately, I think it's kind of a blessing and a rite of passage that's got less meaning now than it did 9 years ago or 7 years ago.
Yeah, no, I will be writing a full report on it like I do every year. On this particular MQ, and I wrote in the Insider last month that I had a beef with the inclusion criteria and exactly what they're looking at. I think UCAS is they're looking at too many things to boil down to one dot. But the thing that really bothered me, and you both touched on this, is that the graphic really didn't change much, and someone who follows these vendors pretty closely and all the announcements that are going on and all the changes that are happening, it feels like they're year to year, the dots need to move a little more for this report to be meaningful, and it's not really capturing all the stuff that's really happening in the industry. The
I would also
um,
ask about the AI. It's like if 9 years ago Cisco was where it was and Microsoft was where it was and Zoom was where it was, and they've all essentially fundamentally changed their message. I mean, completely changed their message about what they're doing with automation and transcription and data and insights and Copilot and all the rest of it. And you're right, the dots didn't move. So did they simply incorporate all of the new stuff in, or is it missing an element that needs to be managed or scrutinized?
well, I think AI is a big part of the story here, but not the way you're thinking. I think so. The Magic Quadrant's an annual report, and it's a very complex report. They put out a complicated RFI. They give the vendors, like about a month to respond to the RFI. It takes them about 6 months to go through all the data and everything, and then they publish the report. And so the very nature of this report is, it's already a year, or let's say half a year old before the day it's published. Now, um, AI is changing things, right? AI is making things go a lot faster than it used to go. And so I think Gartner's adjusting to that. And I don't think an annual report makes sense to them anymore. And they've done a number of changes. And I don't know this to be true, but a number of changes. I think they're trying to get the Magic Quadrant maybe down to every 9 months instead of every year. Again, I don't know that to be true, but it seems like it. They gave the vendors only like 3 weeks this time. They flipped it around much faster than they usually do. And they reduced, in order to accomplish that, they reduced a lot of the content on the RFI. They didn't ask about a lot of things they normally ask about. They're streamlining the whole thing, the whole process to make this thing go faster. I think that's the wrong reaction. I think what's happening is they're basically focusing on the objective stuff. The Do you have this feature? Do you have this feature? And they only ask about features that are more or less mainstream. They don't ask about emerging features. And so the dots didn't really move. What I think is important from an analyst perspective is the subjective part. I want them to tell me more about their insights, and I think they cut a lot of that stuff out of the process. And so I think they're trying to get this thing to be quicker to respond to AI. But as you pointed out, David, AI can do the objective stuff. AI could actually compare the features and all that stuff. The part that AI can't do is the subjective part. And so I think it would be a lot better if Gartner was responding to AI a little differently.
Or have a column of these are the things that have changed since the last report. Plain
Yeah.
and simple. These are the features that have come out. These are the differences that have come out. It just doesn't show up in a chart of dots. So
Yeah.
That's why
Yeah,
it's magic.
I actually included in the inside report, I quoted a section from 8x8. Some people have asked me why I quoted 8x8. Why did they get the fund? Because what was important about the 8x8 section was I was quoting Gartner. I wasn't quoting 8x8 marketing. I was quoting Gartner. And they listed everything that 8x8 had done in the past year. And it was a long set of stuff. And my point was they accomplished all this in Gartner's words, and their dot didn't move. That was the point. It's like, what the hell does it take to move a freaking dot in this thing? So, uh, yeah. So enough said on that one. So, uh, I think we covered the things we were going to cover. Any additional thoughts, or we just wrap it up and go home?
what do you think, Mark? Did you get a chance to say everything you wanted to?
Oh, there's always more to say, but I think I'm getting kind of hungry now with Dave's stroganoff comment. So, but
You said
it's
carbonara.
I carbonara stroganoff. It's all good. Now, thanks for having me. I think it was a good conversation.
Thank you very much. Great conversation. Thank you, Mark, for joining us.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys.
Thanks very much. We'll see you on the next one.